Hello, welcome to Metal Devotions. I am your devotee Celeste, and today I'm here with Strathanis and D Boyd, which are two brothers from the band Ziggurat. And this is my first interview on my channel, so be that what as you may. And just a little bit of background, just a smidge. This is a death metal band from Virginia, and they have a special spin on the death metal genre, being more of mythos metal, that centers around H.P. Lovecraft, horror, occultism, and science fiction, and the likes, which is really interesting. So yeah, happy to have you guys on here.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, to get started here, so according to research, Metal Archives, you guys started in the late 90s, 1998, but you didn't come out with your first full length until 2004, kind of as a two-parter here. What inspired you back then to create this band? And I guess, why did it take from that time to 2004 to, come up with this full length? Because usually there's the demos or the EPs earlier on.
Well, I guess to address the question of the album release in 2004, when we first got started, all we were doing and all we were focusing on was just playing out as much as possible, just hitting every venue all the time. We stayed busy. There was no time to really stop and record. We were young, having a good time, in that party phase in the beginning years of the band. And so we just pushed and pushed and pushed as much live performance. And then once we got to a certain point, we said, I think we should probably record something at this point. And so we finally settled down and recorded Hymns of the Cthulhu Mythos in 2004.
We messed around with a couple little DIY demos that never saw the light of day before that period, but Hymns was our first consolidated effort.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting because it's different from what a lot of other bands do. They have at least a little demo and stuff out instead of just being we're just going to tour and go to all these venues and stuff. So I think that's really cool to, flip-flop it in that way.
Yeah, it was something I always call, we're doing it backwards, guys. And so we finally sat down and recorded the album, which is actually, believe it or not, that first album was our second set of material. And our second album is our first set of material.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you guys definitely are backwards guys in that way. But that's cool, though. You still at least had it released in some way.
Yes.
Now, what made you guys decide to, I guess, go down the path of being more mythos metal than, the typical genres or themes of death metal bands?
Well, originally we were focused on mythology and ancient history. That was what we were mainly aiming for. But being an avid reader of, horror fiction and science fiction movies and all that, our bassist Brad Shaneman and I had a shared love for H.P. Lovecraft. Mm-hmm. And, we talked about it all the time, and we decided to piddle with a couple songs and add the Lovecraftian themes to it. And once we got them out, they felt more visceral. They felt more authentic instead of just the early days of writing material and seeing what happens. It's there was intention behind it. And so we decided to, hey, let's just go ahead and make an entire album based on H.P. Lovecraft. And so we pulled it all together, got it recorded, and we loved it so much that we started calling it Mythos Metal. And decided at that point that while we can still touch on other subjects we like, the rule of thumb now is every other album we do is going to be based on H.P. Lovecraft's works or the Cthulhu Mythos in general.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Yeah, no, I kind of like that you have that pattern and stuff. And I think it's unique for sure because, there's so many bands, they do, one song based off of, H.P. Lovecraft or, I've seen that, here and there. Even in, rock, they do it. But I kind of think I like that you expanded on it more and just, we're just going to take this and, go with it instead of being, the classic, oh, we'll do horror, but like it's more like gory and stuff.
Well, the good thing about H.P. Lovecraft is that his work is open for people to expand upon.
Mhm.
And, I tried my hand at writing short stories early on and didn't quite turn out the way I liked. So I decided to turn those into lyrical concepts. So most songs that we write about H.P. Lovecraft are sometimes where a story left off, we'll continue on with it. Like our song "Plague of the Pallid Mask," when the story itself ends is when our song begins, and you're seeing the aftermath of that. Um, our song "Chocolate Shagath Shake" is a completely original story about a servitor of the ancient gods who cultivates shagaths in pits and breeds them through various ways, including ice cream.
That's so cool. I
He
like that
basically
you.
he basically minces them up and makes them into a drink, which the victims then ingest and become.
Kind of like the movie The Stuff, but intentional. Old horror movie called The Stuff.
That's really cool. I like that you add on to it and stuff. If only he was alive today. Well, he'd be very old. It'd be impossible for him to be alive, but I'd be curious to know like his thoughts somehow if he were to like
Knowing
time
H.P.
travel.
Lovecraft, he would probably be mortified with the state of affairs.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Now speaking about releases, could you walk us through, I guess, some of the process of your songwriting? Like what happens first and how do you kind of go from there?
Concept is first. I have to know what we are writing about,
Hmm.
so that the song can have a spirit inside of it that the listener, even if they can't understand our lyrics, understands in some way what the song is about. Once again, on Chocolate Shake, when we start finally saying what is in the chocolate shake, we have a blender riff that, because he's blending it all together and it cycles in that, revealing the horror of it. I'm sorry, I lost track of myself. Go ahead.
Yeah, the music kind of reflects the theme of the music. So I mean, what's being said. So when it picks up and he's actually making the shakes, the riffs are very frantic and like
Mhm.
almost mincing in sound, and it kind of really sets the tone for that section of the story.
Yeah, it always sounds like what it's about. And like I said, that's one of the things I'm really uh, concentrating on all the time, knowing what it's going in. If we're going to write a song about a train, for whatever reason, it needs to have that chugga chugga in there somewhere so that someone can understand that this song is about a train. But yeah, it's always concept first, so we know what we're writing about. Um, Depending on the song, sometimes we'll sit down together and write it out. A lot of times I'll write 20 or 30% of a song, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes of a song, and then we'll all work together to flesh the rest of it out. But always with that concept in mind: what is it about? Does it sound like tentacles? Does it sound like the blender? Does it sound like someone going downstairs into a dank abyss? Really try to emulate it through the music as well.
Wow, that's really impressive, especially like the mentioning of like tentacles and stuff like that. I feel like being able to have that sound instead of it being like, oh, I'm just gonna include like a sound effect or something like that, like you want to make it. I think that's really creative and definitely sets apart in what a lot of other like, horror themed type of music I've heard kind of has instead of it being like an intro from a film. It's like, no, we're just gonna have it be there on our own.
You know, Now, I'm a huge King Diamond fan. King Diamond influences a lot of what I do, and that's where I get a lot of that inspiration, because all of his songs sound horrific and really permeate with the atmosphere he's trying to give it. And I like to incorporate that into what we do as much as possible. Like I said, the Tentacle Riff song sounds in our song "The Road to Dunwich." It sounds like a person traveling. It's got a very rock-oriented, casual riff that, once it crescendos, drops into these quad trills of slow undulating madness before it gets heavy again and starts to rock out, because the scenery is him walking into town, seeing the sky break open and the tentacles emerging from the sky and coming down and messing everything up. So the song really captures that movement from Paragraph, and the story progresses musically and sonically as well.
That's cool. It's funny that you mentioned that because I literally thought about like King Diamond stuff when I was listening to you guys, because I've been doing it like on and off as I was researching.
Yeah, that's in there.
I definitely felt that for sure.
Good. I'm glad it comes across. King Diamond is a god.
And like with one of our most popular songs, Ia, there's a section in the middle where they're actually walking up upon the ritual, and that's when there's the tribal drums, and the whole mood is set right there and live. That really translates and really works the crowd over pretty much every time. They get caught up in that whole vibe and emotion and feel of that section. And yeah, it pretty much takes everybody over, and it's very effective.
Yeah, very effective. That song was specifically written to be an interpretation of the cultists in the woods doing the ritual from the story, The Call of Cthulhu. Instead of just writing a song about the Call of Cthulhu, I took a sub aspect of the story and did it from that perspective. So the song is in a Relayan language, an Eldritch language. There's no English in it at all. And the whole song is the ritual. You would see it's frenzied, it's disjointed, it's cohesive at the same time. It's organized chaos that results in, like I said, the dropout where you're actually witnessing the ritual, and the drums begin and you can hear the ears growing in the cacophony of the music. It turned out really well, very effective.
That's awesome. Now I guess it's going to be hard to comprehend, which is, very H.P. Lovecraft oriented, but how would you guys possibly describe your music to someone who might be listening for the first time? And I guess, what is something that you guys want to mainly take away from being such like a mythos-driven band?
We've been described by other metal bands we played with before. One guy said it was like death metal Dio, which it's pretty close because, he has the Judas Priest and the Iron Maiden and the King Diamond, and then like I have like the 1349 and the Dark Throne style drumming, and our other members have punk backgrounds, death metal backgrounds, and then you mix all that together, and that's kind of where we get Mythos Metal. And his vocal approach is rooted in death metal and Carcass and Creator, multiple voices. Our guitarist with the backing vocals, he has the death metal growl, and then he has the high pitched scream as well.
That's really cool.
Matt, our guitarist Matt, he was very, he's an old soul in a young body. He listens to Deicide, Morbid Angel, some of the newer metal too, but he definitely has that classic pedigree under his belt. And our bassist Corey, he's new to the fold, but he has a lot of that 90s metal sensibility inside of what he does, as well as that punk aspect as well. So we're able to, get that core level going, and every aspect of those genres come together to deliver a different type of brutal experience. Kind of like I've said in the past, it's like if Cannibal Corpse and Judas Priest were writing a song together, or if Deicide and Dio were writing a song together, as he said, it's everyone can hear that retro aspect inside of it, while also at the same time delivering it with the brutality of the early 90s death metal.
And there's passages of melody in an Iron Maiden kind of way, but we have been described as melodic death metal, but we have passages that are melodic, but we're not really melodic death metal.
Mm-hmm.
We do have other songs that we call our off songs that are actually pretty from beginning to end, while still delivered with that rocking 80s fist pump, songs like Ghost of Abyss Nigera, The Dark Continuum. We've got a handful of them, Artifact of those before, a very retro thing that sounds like something off of Judas Priest, British Steel, or some early Iron Maiden, Peace of Mind, but always delivered with a little extra menace.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's a really cool combination for sure on your description of that. Now I'm going to mention it because it's going to be included towards the start of this video interview. You're just not seeing it, obviously. But regarding your most recent album from 2024, which we'll talk about more in a bit, there was a music video that you guys released last year called "And the Hills Were Silent," which is, similar track to your old album, which again we'll talk about. Um, that is called Silent Hill, and it has like that Silent Hill theme in it, which differs from the other music that someone may listen to if they kind of like go around your discography. Um, Especially on an album that definitely has like more of the topics of like the King in Yellow and like Lovecraftian lore. What was the reason for adding that that concept to this album? Was it more of like like a brief homage to that world, or was it something more?
It's pretty deep. The first time I played Silent Hill as a teenager, I was blown away by the trauma that it involved. I played Resident Evil, and it was great, sure. But once I played Silent Hill, this was more up my alley. Like I said, it's traumatizing. It reaches on a deeper emotional level, better story writing.
Mhm.
And when the Ziggurat first formed, we actually covered the Silent Hill theme song for like the first 4 or 5 shows. And we just kind of let that fall off to the wayside. It was just something we were having fun with. Fast forward to the 2008 release of The Plague of the Pallid Mask. That was before streaming services. And so on the physical release, it was just the hidden track. We just decided to throw a hidden track on there. And it was, well, we played it back in the day. I love this video game. Let's go ahead and do this. And so that's why that was on that album. It was meant to be a hidden track for physical release only. I think there was like 5 or 6 blank tracks between the end of the album before that one hit. And I ended up making a short film to that back in the day with one of a group of our friends. We made that. It was my first experiment in filmmaking, so I just kind of locked it away. And hey, this was fun. It'll help me in the future that I've done this. And then we're going to fast forward to now with the Plague of the Pallid Mask newest release. While doing these re-releases, instead of just doing these old songs, I said we should write a new original track that's up to date to add on to all these albums. That way it'll keep it interesting. It'll keep something new coming into the mix. And I was like, well, this song was already on the original as a hidden track. Let's take it, completely break it down to its bare bones and write an original song called And the Hills Were Silent. I always liked the way that sounded. But with the sound effects of the static, the way it comes in beautiful, big build-ups and everything, that was very much inspired by how the composer of Silent Hill does his music. And then I needed to make it death metal, and then I had, of course, Matt come over and Strathonis with his hyper blasts. Just building it from scratch and going through the entire thing, while in the chorus of it, reworking completely that Silent Hill theme in a new way to where there was no issue, if you know what I mean, and keeping the spirit of it in there, and then just let the song write itself out and go where it may. And since I had done the short film with the original cover, I decided to go ahead and do a real music video for this one. And we started the video. Took about a year of planning from idea to completion. Endless hurdles with local townships and city councils to get work done. But it's about 5 months of filming and editing, and I think it turned out pretty well.
Most of it was filmed in a local insane asylum. And also with the advent of technology, um, my brother was able to basically edit all that through various apps, and that video he just basically created, on his own. And it like reviews from people that have seen it, especially some of our filmmaking friends. They said it seemed to be about a $5,000 video, and I mean he basically just
$180 was our entire budget for
Wow.
that.
and he just basically made it on his phone. I mean, truth be told, and it turned out great.
Yeah, the my son was in the media program at his high school, for 5 years,
Hmm.
and so they allowed us to use all their equipment at no cost, which wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get the job done. And then once all the footage was taken, uh, I moved everything over to my phone and just edited for about 2 months and got it all together.
Wow.
But you wouldn't have expected that having watched it, would you?
No, that's really, I guess, amazing and impressive that you all did that yourself. Because I was curious, because hearing like you guys talk about it, I was like, oh, you did this all yourself. That's really awesome. I think that's really
That's
commendable
him, and
too.
he produces all the albums as well, and that was more of a started that.
Yeah, nothing is cheap in the music industry, and the instruments are expensive enough. So every album I've done from my home studios, the video was done, like I said, on my phone and with community support on different other resources. It's all a very DIY project. Everything we have, we worked really, really hard for and put a lot of time into. We're very thankful for the responses we've gotten from everything we put out so far.
That's great. Now coming from a more rural part of the United States, such as Virginia, how have like other artists or even like the local scene itself inspired the band when it comes to, music or even identity?
I think it's definitely ingrained in our personalities. Coming from the mountains. We've always kind of been outsiders, of course. Discovering death and black metal at a young age,
Hmm.
and as far as the local scene, as times moved on, evolved, bands have sprung up in all their respective corners, especially with the advent of technology, like I said, and the internet and the way to be exposed to these styles of music. And we do have a healthy local scene here, many bands, and I think if we grew up somewhere else, like we've had people come up from the beach in various places that are flat, and they come up to these mountains, and it's just they see it and they feel it. It does, like, there's an Appalachian black metal scene, and it's because of these mountains that I think a lot of this is created, and that appreciation and connectivity with nature and spirituality, that I think some people, from larger cities or, like I said, flat, humid, barren landscapes, they don't really get that.
I
Yeah,
think that makes sense.
I really enjoy the aspect of living in the Appalachian Mountains because they are the most ancient mountain range on Earth. We live in the New River Valley with the New River, which is one of the only two rivers that flow the wrong direction. Where we live is the remnants of Pangea. It's very ancient. It's older than bones. It's older than vertebrates. It's one of the oldest locations on the planet that's still, exposed. There's a lot of to get Lovecraftian. There's a lot of stuff going on in these hills.
No, I think that's really cool. I like that. There's definitely like a big difference, I feel, in that regard, especially as someone that mostly lived in the city all their life, like especially even just moving, like I've mostly been in the city areas, and there's definitely even like a difference whether you're in the music scene or not, there's that different feeling to it. So I definitely agree with that regard. Um, Now, as a fan of H.P. Lovecraft myself, some of the mythos, with you guys, given the fact with your theme and everything, what is your favorite Lovecraft story or film? And I'm saying film loosely because there's a good bit of films, but like not all of them are like super great, I would say, to me.
Go ahead, you start.
The Void was a fantastic Lovecraftian movie. I was absolutely blown away by it. I don't know if you've seen The Void yet, but I suggest everyone watch The Void. I thought it was hands down exactly what it needed to be. Horrifying, the practical effects, no CG, essentially throughout the entire thing. It really hit the cosmic dread and just a nightmare fever dream that needed to be captured for a descent into madness like that. Fantastic. Of course, old ones like The Thing.
You grew up on that?
Yeah, Event Horizon. We bleed for all these movies. They're absolutely fantastic.
In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah. We could go on for hours just about the movie side of things when it comes to Lovecraft. But for story, for me, it was one of the ones that was completed, after his death, which is The Thing in the Moonlight. It's short. I'm a huge Twilight Zone fan, and that seems like that should have been a Twilight Zone episode. It was short, it was powerful, it was effective, and it wrapped back around exactly where it should have gone. And it's only 2.5 pages, and I've read that over 100 times. It just is really effective, and it sticks with me.
Wow.
Mine would probably be one of the shorter ones. Early on, being exposed to his work through my brother. I was briefly thumbing through and found one that was just one page, and it was What the Moon Brings, and just the description of that and that whole mood and feeling of that story. That's what started me. And then I would read more of the always more into like more obscure works of anything, music or books. But Winged Death was one of the ones I really liked, and I liked the color out of space.
That's a good one.
Which was a great movie, by the way. That was a very disturbing Nicolas Cage in there. That movie. Yeah, it really conveyed the story.
Yeah, they did a great job with that film. I thought that was great work. And to find out that the guy who did The Island of Dr. Moreau, directed it, and that Elijah Wood was involved in financing it, I was just blown away by. I thought that was fantastic. Definitely one for everyone to see.
Yeah, no, I actually saw that one, and it definitely, I felt, affected after it for some reason. Usually films don't do that for me, but, I felt something after that. It was crazy.
It's unsettling. It's definitely unsettling.
As usual, it goes off the rails from the source material, but I think it was done well nonetheless. You can't always expect a Lovecraft story to be done properly or at all verbatim. So everything we get, we have to take it for what was the director's vision, and I think he did an amazing job with it.
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely a really good vision in that regard. Now I do have to mention this because I've seen it, and I've heard about it, but you guys recently opened for some really cool and legendary death metal bands such as Macabre and Incantation in North Carolina at the event Carolina Chainsaw Massacre. How did this come to be, and what was it like performing at such a stacked event?
If you take a chance, you have a chance, is our mantra. And when we saw that was coming to Chapel of Bones in Raleigh, great venue, by the way, I saw that said TBA on the bottom. And so I blew up every connection I had in the venue, and some people I knew were going to another show before that. So I sent them with the goal to find the booker, find this, find that, get the information, put us out there, and we landed it. It was 2 weeks later. There it was. We couldn't believe it. But if you take a chance, you have a chance.
Yeah, and it definitely was legendary, and we prepped for that show, and we knew what it was going to be, and that kind of opportunity is something that we've always been working towards. So that was basically our moment, and some of our friends that have a production group, they actually did a pro shot video, pro audio, pro mix, 3 cameras, and we were able to capture that night. And that's just something that we will always be able to take away from that night, you know. And yeah, it was cool to be backstage with them, you know, in out, all of us talking over the same food and just getting to meet everybody. And yeah, it felt really good. It felt like a life achievement. You just knew when you were there that you know, that was a real accomplishment, and we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, one of those things you think about when you're 13 years old, and then you eventually do it. It's mind blowing.
That's great. Yeah. No, I really like that you said it so well. Like when you take a chance, have a chance. Not a lot of people really do that, or they feel like pressured, or like it's too risky and stuff. But I mean, sometimes it's really worth it because, like, you know, the worst you could say is like they could say is like no or something like that. But at least you tried, and you know you were able to get it from that. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, any opportunity is an opportunity, and if you have a snowball's chance in hell, then that's the chance you have. Just throwing it out there. Any show I see coming, you know, anywhere within our footprint that has significant bands on it, I'll mail them anyway, even though the bill's already full, because you never know if someone's going to drop off.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a change up. At least throw it out there into the universe and see if the universe responds in kind. I did that as well back in, was it 2010 or
2011.
2011? Threw an email out to Jax in Washington, D.C., and within 30 minutes got a confirmation that we were going to open for Rotting Christ and Melakesh and Abigail Willis.
We saw an opening for that show, and I passed it along to him, and he messaged him, and like, was it that day or the next
30
day?
minutes later.
30 minutes later, out of nowhere, we were confirmed for Rotting Christ and Melakesh, and that was at the time, you know, the biggest show of our lives, you know, 15 years ago. And that was another legendary night to stand there with Ashmidi and everybody from Melakesh. And, you know, he's been friends with them for a while because of various subject matter, similar themes. And just to meet everybody and to be on that level, it was humbling, and we were very thankful for that as well. We're always casting out there, you know, the more lures you have out, the more bites you get, per se. And yeah, we're always just going for it and asking, you know, larger bands if they need a band, or friends of larger bands, you know, if there's any chance that said band would want to do a show like this. You know, sometimes, yeah, a lot of times, especially if you work with agents and stuff like that, they're wanting like max capacity and guarantees. But other times it works out, and like you said, you don't know unless you try.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's really great. I think that's a really awesome and great example of, you know, as you mentioned, like taking those chances, being able to make those really awesome connections and, you know, perform your stuff to others who might not have heard it before, but they wanted to see, like, let's say they wanted to see Rotting Christ, but then they hear you and then they're like, oh, I actually really like this band too. I'll check them out. So,
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, and that does happen a lot. It's like, if you would just come to the show, we know you're into this, you know. So if you would just come check it out, you'd probably like it. But you know, the people are apathetic these days, and you know, they'll click through, scroll, you know, and just pass by things, or not go to the show because no one they know is playing, and you know, or leave before said band plays. But yeah, come out to the show. That's how you ultimately are exposed, you know, is the live environment.
yeah, definitely. Now, I guess being a bit more reflective with this, how do you think your sound has evolved since, the start of the band, for example? Like, what are some key differences and takeaways from your very first album, Hymns of Cthulhu Mythos, to now, like, the later version of The Plague of the Pallid Mass, which was, like, roughly like a 20-year difference?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved. Our second album, Confrontation with the Disciples of the Shadow Walker, that's our original sound. It's a little more retro. There's less death metal involved, though it's still heavy, if you know what I mean. Um, and over the years, and I'll be back up. The early one was also a lot of my writing,
Mhm.
solely a lot of my early writing. And then Hymns of the Cthulhu Mythos was a 50-50 essential split with me and Brad on the writing. And that's where the true evolution of where things could go, how they were going to go, with Strawn's black metal background, feeling that aggressive hyper blast underneath it makes you want to write heavier. And then getting other band members like Matt involved, Steve, Corey, our various members throughout the years. Everyone listens to different metals, and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier until you have what you have today, which is just a punishing experiences like our song Ia or Into the Dank Abyss. Even though they still have the spirit of the original material underneath them, everything is a much meaner, smarter, bigger monster, over the years.
It's everything's calculated as well. Our moments in songs, they're calculated for effectivity and, ultimately what we want to hear, but also how it will affect the crowd.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely important, especially because, we'll talk about it more, but you guys definitely, perform a lot live, especially from then and now. So I could see why you want something that's more like crowd focused as well.
Yeah, and it's cool to do it on your own terms.
Hmm.
If you get to a moment and you feel like, oh, dude, this is a hook, then you can capitalize on its placement. It's never it's music for us that we know the audience is going to love certain moments, and so we'll build up those moments, those deliveries in a much bigger, swelling way that just makes the crowd lose their mind.
Now, I guess speaking about it, and you guys briefly mentioned it, now a lot of your older material has been re-recorded. Um, I guess what was like the reason or choice to, re-record? I know a lot of bands do it, but I guess just looking at discography, I thought it was interesting, especially there are like slight differences like in sound, obviously, but I just think it's so interesting to hear like those differences and then have that decision of re-recording it. And then on a secondary question, I haven't seen it unless you guys have it hidden somewhere. Do you plan on re-recording your 2011 album, Beyond the Threshold of Reality?
Okay, to answer the last question, that's what we're currently doing. We are currently recording Beyond the Threshold of Reality for release. Um, the previous albums were done on very low budget, a lot of free stuff, a lot of learning experiences, and were not what they could have been. The
Mhm.
original Plague of the Pallid Mask was recorded on a Gateway 2000 computer with the least amount of gear you can imagine. It's embarrassing if I was to say what we recorded with. Before that confrontation from 2007, same thing, but it was more of a learning experience that created Plague of the Pallid Mask. And our first album, Hymns of Cthulhu Mythos, was recorded at a bluegrass studio without the metal and rock sensibility that the production of it should have had.
Mhm.
Um, why we decided to redo all that is mainly because of reasons that could have been done better. One of those moments. And it was our 25-year anniversary. So we wanted to do something really significant for our 25-year anniversary. We just gotten back together for live performances again. So we chose to do a couple tracks off of each album with modern productions, more theatrics, the little embellishments that have changed over the years of playing the songs are now captured. The songs are anywhere from 10 to 20% different than they originally were. And time got away from us because it was a lot to record. And so instead of getting all that accomplished within the 25-year time frame, it is bled over. And so the next year was followed by the hymns, the Plague of the Pallid Mask re-release. And then the next year was working on the music video. And then since the music video, we have been working on the Beyond the Threshold of Reality redo, which is coming along nicely. And we already have a whole other album of material ready and prepped for release after that we had written in 2013.
Yeah. All this stuff is old news for us, but it needs to see the light of day properly. And another thing is when it came to re-recording, live we had all of our staples that we always played, and I wanted to kind of revisit some of the deeper cuts that never really saw the light of day, like Tendrils of Terror. That was my suggestion, to give that a modern production and bring that out, and we worked it into the set, and that's one of our more fun songs to play.
People love that one. And we also did Burn Away My Sins on Confrontation, which was supposed to be on the original 2007 album, but never didn't make it for whatever reason. So we decided to add that onto this one. It's been a lot of fun revisiting all these old songs, really hearing how they've changed with every band member's influence. Because some of these have had seen 25 years of band members, different guitarists who contributed, different bassists who've contributed, then more bassists and more guitarists who've contributed. So it's kind of like playing operator. It alters slowly over the years and just gets better and better and better. So it's really nice to hear all this together, especially with the B-sides that didn't see a lot of the light of day.
Yeah, that's great that you guys are, it keeps it fresh. I feel like definitely, especially if someone, like people who may be finding you for the first time, like they're like, oh, like there's these. And if they really want to, they can go back and listen to the older stuff if they wish. But it's also nice, just like, obviously, as you mentioned, having like that modern like twist and change and have it be what you want it to be more, especially because, technology's evolved and stuff. And in a way, it's made it easier, especially if you want things to not really sound cleaner, but like just have that production be there. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, more dynamic.
Definitely needed a better production. We try to keep a slight raw and liveness to it as well, with our genuine, tones and approach to how we do it. Slight, minute things that the average listener will miss that are part of the live experiences are still in there. A little loose thing here and there, maybe, to keep it raw. We're a old school no embellishments, no click tracks, no in-ears, none of that. It's just raw old school.
That's awesome. Now, having been a band that's been working independently and releasing their own material for so long, what are some of like the challenges and advantages to that?
I guess the advantages are we can do what we want. The challenges are we can be limited at times, exposure-wise. That's everything we're trying to do, is to try to get heard and seen by the right people. Like I said, because we know all the metalheads out there would enjoy it if they could just come across it. And, not everyone is located close by that can attend the show, so getting the music to them, and Dwayne does a lot of work through promotion and posts, and he has that all figured out, the analytical side of the business aspect, and where to boost and how to target to where it can be seen and heard and stumbled upon.
I think that's the struggle, is that with the way the internet and social media and advertising works, everything results in just stumbling upon it. You know, you can get it in front of the right eyes, but then you have the apathy barrier where people are just scrolling, you know, and they're not hitting like, they're not investigating. You know, everything's got to have that 1.2 second engagement grab nowadays because attention goes down, down, down. But a lot of our advertising is done well as of late, especially with a lot of our larger shows like Amp Fest, and when we play the Milk Parlor, seeing a lot of new people come out, people responding to the ads, new families coming out, seeing larger and larger crowds. So it's actually paying dividends in that respect. And that's good to get those people to the show so that they'll finally see it and they'll get the next person to come to the show and build up that way.
Yeah, no, definitely. It is quite hard, especially like nowadays in that regard with people I've spoken with and stuff. It's just hard. So I agree. Especially even like there's so much that's been released like from the past to now. Like a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I found this project and it's so old, it's not a thing anymore, or it's just not as popular, so like there's not much done with it." So I think that's great that you guys keep pushing on as long as you have been around to keep going and, you know, do what you love.
Yeah, we're doing it on our terms. The art is for us, the experience is for us, the moment is for us, and the fact that people enjoy what we do and respond to it and resonate with it is, you know, it's a blessing, so to speak. You know, you do it for yourself, and the fact that fans come is really what makes it all worth it. And we just want to make sure that as many people who would be into it get a chance to come and see it.
Definitely. Now one thing that is really impressive is how the band performs live so much, you know, how often you guys do it, especially now. Um, what drives you guys to perform as often as you do, which I've seen it's like about once a month or more? You know, especially considering like, you know, unfortunately with like real life, like if there's that work-life balance or other stuff that might be in the way that's, you know, other musicians have talked about. Um, and I was gonna ask if it's been more of like something you did since the start, or has it been a more recent decision? But I feel like it's just been something that you guys have been doing since the start, given the fact you guys didn't record anything until 2004 because you guys are performing live so much.
Well, we're definitely a live band. You know, that is our bread and butter right there. Um, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think now, you know, there's not really a sense of urgency, but, you know, as we age, be in that moment more and have people be exposed to our music, you know, and working within our footprint, like I said, you know, trying to network as much as possible and play better gigs. I mean, because that's the point. You always want to get on that bigger gig to be exposed to more fans. And, you know, in the beginning, we were just happy to get free beer and, you know, free food and just play, you know, within an hour or so and do that, you know, every other weekend. But, you know, now it's like it's more logistic. It's got to be worthwhile. It's got to be worth our time, our effort, because, you know, money is still not what we love. You know, one or two shows a month, that keeps us going. It keeps us relevant. It keeps, you know, basically energy in our tank that, you know, we are doing this. And, you know, there's always something on the horizon. There's always something to look forward to. And we've always got something around the bend, you know, for us and for our fans. So that's basically what's driving us.
You know, the constant need to create. Don't do like traditional tours where we go out for 2 or 3 weeks at a time on a nonstop run. We're very much limited to Sunday band. You know, we have jobs, we have families, but the one thing we all agree on is that the band is a major priority that is going to consistently be there, and we're going to do as much as we can. I mean, we played on a Tuesday and on a day before. Once it was worth it, like opening for Rotting Christ and Melikesh. I think that was on a Wednesday.
Yep.
Nothing's out of the realm of possibility, but playing out as much as possible, staying visible, because in today's world, you have to consistently stay visible to stay relevant. And the more visible you are, the more people have the opportunity to see you. We're very lucky to be near Virginia Tech, an international campus that has students coming in, new droves of students every year from all over the world. It's the next best thing to living in New York City or LA in terms of exposure, because every class that graduates, every single metalhead who manages to come to our show is going to see the world, literally the world, with our music wherever they go back home to. And that's been a very good aspect. So that's another reason we try to play that area about 3 to 4 times a year, so that that student body is constantly exposed to us and can bring that excitement to their friends when they go back home and share the metal.
Yeah, and another good place about place is called the Milk Parlor. Another good thing about playing that place near that close to the campus, is their max cap's probably only 250. But when you pack that place out and then you network and you bring bands who may be touring into this environment, and everyone is going, insane and having a blast, and then late night they're coming in off the street in droves and they're paying the cover, and they're coming in and they're, some of them may be their first time, but they stay. And so many bands that we've hosted have just had, like, they've put that show like at the top, of all the shows they've ever played as far as the energy and the response. And we love that as well, because, in a way, we get to close out the night and all that energy, in our home crowd, but to expose these bands who are from all over the place and just have them see that and then take that home with them and, have that, to carry with them forever, or tell their friends or other bands. We're fortunate to have that kind of environment.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's a really good reason to, still perform live in that way, especially with what you guys want to do and everything. And that is really beneficial, like your locality, because sometimes people may not be as fortunate to be in, like, even like that. Like, it's different when you're in a city, and it's different when you have like some population, but if you don't have that at all, it can be a little bit more challenging. So that's nice that you guys do that to help, you know, hype up yourselves, hype up the other bands, and get more fans that way, more naturally.
Every locality needs a solid structure to keep bands flowing in and out. We've been doing this a long time for the Radford Blacksburg area. Adam Seelbach from Blitheville area, he's constantly pulling bands through there. Each node in Virginia, has a group that really keeps the bands flowing through and keeps it engaging. And we're very lucky to be to our home to be at the Blacksburg near Virginia Tech, and to have that type of response that we're able to help these other bands out with. Because they're going to want to come back for sure. And a lot of our band Terrafest, our friend, them, they specifically held their fests in Blacksburg because of that student body and because of the huge turnout that comes in.
Pretty much every time at this point. Summers are a little thin. You probably get half capacity, but you still have all the locals, and then through his targeting, bringing in new fans. But yeah, pretty much every time we play there,
it's packed.
It's packed.
We're getting ready to play a show July 31st at the Milk Parlor with the band Brutality, and this is going to be an interesting experience because it's middle of summer, student body's completely gone, and there's no remnants at all as of right now. So to see what kind of crowd, since they're a bigger band, see what kind of crowd they pull in, out of the woodwork from just the local scene to pack it out, as well as ours. So I think this might be one of the capacity shows.
That's what we're hoping.
Hopefully. Now, kind of looking ahead for the band, what are your future plans as far as new material? I know you briefly mentioned it, but are there any like topics that you guys wish to dwell on more for future releases that may have not been explored before?
Our current album that we're recording, Beyond the Threshold of Reality, is based on a trilogy by the author Peter F. Hamilton called the Night's Dawn Trilogy. It consists of Reality Dysfunction, The Neutronium Alchemist, and The Naked God. It's that science fiction aspect. It's very much a horror-based science fiction, huge space opera. Our next album will be based once again on H.P. Lovecraft. It'll be titled Lovecraftian Sonnet Occultus. The album directly after that is going to be, hopefully, if I decide and finalize on it, will be based on Twilight Zone episodes.
Oh, wow.
And then after that one will be another Lovecraft album. And we also would like to do an album that is all of our favorite horror movies. And, everyone gets a pick. Anyone who's been in the band can have a pick. And that will be included that way, old members and new members. And we can all be included in something that is continuing on, even if they're not still in the band. I think that'll be lots of fun. We do have something in the works, still a ways away, but that will include another music video as well. There's always something on the horizon, tons to do, and not enough time to do it.
Yeah, and up until that Twilight Zone themed album, these are still old songs for us that we have worked through and finalized, so they should translate fairly easily when it comes time to capture them. But personally, I am looking forward to new material where we lock ourselves in a room and spontaneously come up with something, and see what happens, and just have that creativity, that spontaneity. That's something I'm looking forward to. I love playing the old songs, and they're comfortable, and we've got them worked out. I'm ready to track them, and I'm ready to work on some new stuff and see what happens all these years later.
That's great. Yeah, no, I think that's nice that you guys are still taking the time to bring everything to light, and then you're going to start working on future stuff. And it's really nice and I guess really cool to hear, like, oh, here's all these plans we have. Because, sometimes I totally get it with some like other projects. It's like, oh, we might have this idea or that, but you're like, no, we have like a game plan. This is how it's going to look the next however long. So that's nice. And it's really interesting. I don't think there's really any songs about the Twilight Zone stuff.
There's some, but like I said, and also Outer Limits, maybe Fluent, and maybe some Night Gallery. There are a couple of songs based on those, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of the theme and the TV show, and I watch it, the entire series, every year, so I'm excited to get knuckle deep in that.
Awesome. Well, kind of as a final wrap-up question here, what platforms can people find your music and even future announcements if, people want to come and see you live?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of those are available for any type of update you're looking for. You can also go to our Bandcamp and find our music there. It's the best way to support us. You can find all of our music on any major streaming service, most sub-streaming services as well. And you can contact us directly through our socials, and you can hear us anywhere.
Yeah, awesome. But so I'm going to be including links to the Ziggurat in the description below. I would highly recommend checking it out, especially if you're into like that sci-fi horror and Lovecraftian stuff. And thank you guys so much. It's been such a huge pleasure speaking with you all, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors.
Well, thanks for having us, and good to see you again.
Thank you. It's good to see you. All right. Bye.
See ya.